Welcome to another riveting edition of Risk and Return. I'm Charlie Gasparino from Fox Business, the New York Post. I'm here with my partner in crime, the granddaddy of data, the man of the hour, the guy you got to listen to. His name is Bob Sloan. He's the founder of S3 Partners, the biggest and most popular data distributor on the Bloomberg network. He's here to supply us with his actionable calls, his battleground stocks. I'm here mainly as a fluffer, I guess is the best way to put it. Um, by the way, I can't believe
you are a
said
multi-talented dude. I got to tell you that right now.
I'm here for the color and for the panache. Bob is here for to make you money. And again, we don't tell people how to invest. We provide you the best data where you can make your own decisions. Before we get into that data, Bob, there's some interesting headlines. We should probably
Let's hit it.
Oil up
Yep.
again.
Yep.
It looks like we're in another spell of we might be blocking the Straits of Hormuz and
Indefinitely, or at least for a while.
Do you get a sense of panic though in the markets over this? Not really, right?
Not really.
Why is that?
I think people get the joke. I think they get that.
I mean, oil is up. We know.
No, but they also get that the economy of Iran is so dependent upon one thing, and it's dependent upon one or two customers, that they may have initially choked the Strait of Hormuz, but by blockading it, and everybody understands it's that one tanker that keeps filling up, and eventually it fills up.
Yeah.
And what happens is, and I'm sure everybody's heard this ad nauseum, which is you have the older wells. Once you cap them, you can't restart them. And so basically your oldest infrastructure goes out first, but those are the ones that have the most reliable sources of oil.
I see, I agree. And here's what's interesting to me. If you listen to high-end opinion, the type of Wall Street research S3 gets and Wall Street gets, it's Iran's economy is literally on its last legs. This thing is going to last.
Well, the real is 99. You look at the value of it. It's 1% of what.
They got
it's so inflated away.
They got like 2 weeks to go,
right,
before it's Armageddon over there, where there's no food.
Well, it comes down who can pay.
But do you have that? I don't see that in the newspaper. I saw one story in the New York Times about that. Below the right at the fold, it wasn't.
It's out there, but it's not really highlighted, and I can't say that I haven't read it or that it hasn't been highlighted or hasn't been noted. Mm-hmm. It's just, as you said, it's below the fold,
and it shouldn't be because
it is because that's the story.
Yeah,
right. And so, if you believe that no one's in charge, if you believe President Trump and you believe the government, you say that okay.
Well, no one is in charge, right?
It seems that way. Right, you send negotiators, you bring them back. No one knows who's doing what. It does stand to reason that therefore there's factions. If there are factions, how do you keep them a faction? This is not a secret. You got to pay people.
Yeah,
This is not super difficult to figure out.
They like their steaks too over there, by the way,
and they like their money, and they want to be paid for their services, just like any other business. And if you're the business of enforcing Sharia law, then that's what the IRGC is to do, is to guard and defend the revolution. That is what you're going to go do. You got to be paid. But if there's no method of payment, or the currency of payment is less, it would be interesting to see if they actually are able to get money from somewhere else, some other currency or hard currency.
Well, can you do it through crypto? Is that
well, maybe, but maybe China gives them some kind of substitute currency or something to use instead of, or they give them some kind of lifeline, which would be very in front of Xi and Trump's meeting, would be very, very, very controversial and aggressive. They may not want to do that. So I tend to think that we have the upper hand, and now it's a waiting game. And we can take the pain longer than they can.
Definitely, our economy is not falling apart. Far from it.
No, we can take the pain longer than
I
they
mean,
can.
people hate paying a lot more money for gas, a dollar more about.
I said pain.
Yeah.
I wasn't denying that there's pain,
Yeah.
because there is pain, and let's not make light of that, particularly when the arguments, the narrative is it's unaffordable to live anywhere in the United States, and that is the narrative. And now we're on this blockade that's making life much more expensive. That is a real narrative. And one of the things we're going to do in the show is to say, what's the market saying versus the narrative?
By the way, that's why I bought a Hyundai. I get very good gas mileage. Very dependable car, by the way, too.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about the South Korean stock market today.
That sounds great. So that's
What else? What else you got?
well, I mean, Jerome Powell, not a total surprise. It's funny. I was preparing a story that says Jerome Powell is telling people that he's going to stay in as the Fed at the Fed as a governor, not as chair. That's been rectified. A story that I foreshadowed on this show that there was going to be an off ramp to get Warsh in there, Powell out as chairman. The off ramp was to take the investigation of his testimony before Congress on the redoing of the Fed building, the $2.5 billion splurge that Trump says were cost overruns. He denies it, by the way, and then people in Trump's questioning whether he misled Congress about this. There was a DOJ investigation. That investigation is now out of the DOJ and has moved. Tom Tillis, the North Carolina senator, who was denying, was sort of withholding, not sort of, was withholding his vote for Warsh, and he's a necessary vote. He's a Republican until this investigation ended. Said, well, maybe make the investigation part of the banking committee. They did something else. They moved it to the Fed Inspector General, which is almost the same thing. But there's still an outside chance that the case could be revisited. Janine Pirro, who's the U.S. attorney for
The DC, right,
who was heading the investigation, said that if there's any inkling that comes up on this, that he did something wrong, I'm coming back in it. So Powell is saying he's not leaving. He said it today until my 2028 Fed governor term is up or the investigations drop. I've been talking to a lot of people about this, how can they kind of get him out? Like I could tell you one economist who's close to Trump said, why don't we do this? Why don't he's going to recommend to Warsh, he says, whether he does or not, it's a whole other story. Why don't they take away his parking spot?
Is that what we're down to? We're going to take away
he said, put his office in the basement of the Fed where there's flooding right now because as they're renovating the headquarters. Kind of like, do you remember that movie Office Space? You remember they put Milton in the basement?
But this sounds like, there used to be a very big investment bank. When you're on your way out, they give you an office in the Rainbow Room. There was there was this multicolored ceiling room, and they would send you up there, and you knew if you were up there, like that was it. Your time was up.
It's the same. It's the thing with Office Space. Do you remember Office Space? They put poor Milton.
Yeah.
The guy they didn't really fire, but they tried to keep getting rid of him. They kept moving him to a different office, and finally they put him in the basement.
Unbelievable.
So that's what I'm hearing. They're actually
what else could they do? Like if you were the Fed chair, like and you're now a governor, what other perks could you take away from him to make him uncomfortable? You put him in the basement, you take away his car parking spot. What else?
I don't know. Computer access. Could you?
Yeah, probably not. Right? He's still employed.
I mean,
technically, he's still a governor. But how about
not invite him to meetings?
Yeah, like you don't invite him to meetings. You don't do this. Don't do that. You don't go out to Aspen or wherever they go. Jackson Hole, the Jackson Hole thing. You don't put that. I mean,
the guy has no budget. His office has no budget.
But we're tongue in cheek right now.
Yeah.
But if that's what it's come down to, then really, is that what we're going to do?
I think they're going to probably just drop the investigation and get him out.
Yeah, get him out of there. Like come on, right?
So that's another thing I'm working on. The college sports stuff. I did a big story last week. It's probably the messiest thing. I couldn't wait to get out of college. I worked my way through college.
I couldn't wait for the real world.
Just for the real world. But these college student athletes, they stay in like 7 years. so they could keep making millions of dollars in endorsements. And it's only really impacting these endorsement deals only impact two sports really,
Football,
and
basketball.
I
Yeah.
mean, to a certain extent. I mean, I guess Livy Dunn because she's a hot blonde.
Well, if you, if well, if you're the
and she's good. I mean,
was it the Cavender twins down in Miami that
Yeah.
have an Instagram following?
Yeah.
Libby Dunn has an Instagram
Yeah.
following.
Now, here's the interesting thing. Here's where it gets really squirrely, and this is where my eyes have been opened on this. I interviewed Randy Levine, who is
President of the Yankees.
President of the Yankees. He's the head of Trump's Blue Ribbon Commission to reform this whole thing. The other
Should have him on.
we will at some point, and we should also have Ron DeSantis on, who is the Florida governor, but the other part of the commission, and he's the other vice chair of the commission. Who, by the way, at Milken next week, I'm doing a fireside chat with both Ron DeSantis and Tim Scott, who runs the banking committee.
Are you going to ask him about gerrymandering and what he's doing down there versus California? Are you going to get into that with him, or is that not really?
Well, it's
maybe
not.
not.
It's going to be mostly about economics, but I guess I'm going to have to ask him because it's news right now.
Yeah.
So one of the things I've learned from Randy is that, okay, so these schools, they have these things called booster clubs who work with the schools.
Sure.
And they take the donor money that usually goes to the schools for their libraries or for women's sports or whatever. They divert most of the donor money to these boosters, which try to get these high profile athletes to stay at the school and woo them to go from school to school.
Right.
And so you're really kind of depriving all these other sports of their college experience. You're sort of these kids stay in school for 7 years just so they can make another $1 million in endorsements. And there's and then there's like sort of a loophole that they're trying to create through these outside marketing companies that are affiliated with the schools, that they're trying to say that they can legally, under the law, based on the court precedent.
This sounds like the LA Clippers with Kawhi Leonard, but we won't get into that.
It's
the
show. Same thing. Now, just so you know, there is no law. The law is pretty clear. If you own your name, image, and likeness, right? And if Burger King comes to you and says, here's $1 million to do X, you can do that. It's when you have these booster clubs and organizations that are affiliated with the school that somehow work in tandem to woo the athletes from school to school.
But I got to tell you something, though. I'm very much a free market capitalist with this thing. When the schools are making hundreds of millions of dollars off of the jerseys and the T-shirts, and if there's a really popular player in college, and these guys now they're getting a lot, but at the end of the day, there has to be a mechanism where they get their market value.
They got it, but it gets worse than that because if you're doing,
but it should be free movement though. It shouldn't be just like,
remember this.
You can only change teams once.
By the way,
if the guy wants to do it 4 times, he should be able to do it 4 times.
I don't know
why.
10 times.
Well, if you're paying them, you're a professional. So if you're a professional, why am I different than another professional?
Then why aren't they taxing their scholarships?
Because they're purportedly going. But there is because they're purportedly going to class, and they do go to class.
It's an
now maybe they're not the hardest classes, whatever, but they're in a classroom.
I'm just saying that there is an incentive structure here that skews the money to sports at the expense of everything else. Schools, most schools are not like Penn State or Ohio State,
Alabama.
You can't compete or University of Miami, where they had one guy from the University of Miami, the quarterback. Can't remember.
Well, then they have to do it.
But then he registered as a graduate student and stayed there 7 years.
Well, that's like Carson Beck, right? He was there for 6 years, and Miami had a guy that was on there for more than 6 years.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, it's legal.
It is.
They can do it, and these kids, if they think like, if I were those folks, knowing how injury prone, no one talks about the fact that the season's a lot longer. They add more and more games to the playoff series, and so the chance of injury is much higher.
Nobody is talking about them not cashing in. Like if they want to start their own business, if they want to, because they own their name, image, and likeness. If they want to get if they want Apple to do something, they can do that. It's when it's affiliated with the school and it changes the school's incentives from a donor standpoint,
right?
from wooing an athlete or building a new library is where you have some issues. Because, what the schools will say is like, we make a lot of money from this stuff, the shirts and everything. But guess what? We're giving you a free education and we're building a college experience that benefits you and everybody else. This is college. This is not a professional thing. And so remember, this is a very complicated thing. I will say this: I just can't believe the money that's being thrown around for a very small segment of the athletes. That's the other thing. Not all athletes are benefiting here. The gym, the women's track star from University of Alabama, whoever that is not getting this. You know, Lolo Jones was the last track star I knew of.
Yeah, but the facilities are better. They're
Well, you know why they're better? Because you're able to, in the old days, you're able to take that money and put it back in the facilities. Now you're paying
because
the
the
kids with that
football
money.
team generates $100 million every year.
Yeah,
and then they're able to.
Some
right.
do, not all of them do.
Well,
The
but
Big Ten-
then you're into like the whole NFL thing. They need
Yeah.
a TV deal
That's what
where
I'm saying.
everybody gets an equal
some
share
of
of
this
something.
some
like
of this is nuts, and I just think it's destroying the college experience. And anyway, yeah, we can argue about this all day because you know what? Everybody's arguing about it. I get a lot of calls on this thing. It's I do find it sort of scary that colleges were create one of the best things about the college experience was that it seeded Olympic athletes, the shot putter, the women's sports. Those are being deprived because of this money. There's no doubt about that. Money is being diverted from some of that because it's being forced, particularly at these big schools, in certain directions, and a lot of mid-sized schools like Rutgers. They have a.
But I
Rutgers
thought
had
you
a
were going to
star.
go somewhere else, which is the private equitization. You saw Utah, right? Took in $500 million because they let private equity own the income stream coming from their sports team. So if you let Wall Street loose on college sports, where the franchises, the particular sports, can be owned by private investors, that is the wild, wild west. That is the wild, wild west. And if that's what the aim of the regulation is, I think for people that can't vote,
Just so you know, one of the marketing outfits, I can't remember what's either Learfield or Play5. That's its names. And I've called them. They did not want to comment. That's one of the things that the NCAA and the College Sports Commission is worried about. College Sports Commission is like an independent body that was created as part of the ruling that allowed this whole thing to happen. This whole structure. They're worried about these independent these sort of companies like Play5, Learfield, actually, being able to work with colleges and take the money to another level. One of those has been bought by private equity. I can't remember which.
No,
one.
I think it was Utah. Obviously the kids can vote. They're of voting age. What I meant is they vote on the deal.
Yeah, that's
they
true.
have no influence on the economics. And by the way, at 18, 19, 20, you played a sport your whole life. I'm not saying these kids are not smart, but it's an uneven playing field of that.
Absolutely.
At that point in your life, you're not really schooled on what you're worth, and so many advisors are telling you all these different things.
But these college stadiums, they put so much money in. I'm like, how good does it need to be? I remember going to Army Navy games and sitting on I think it was like a concrete bench when I went to an Army game once.
I got to tell you, I think going to Texas A&M and experiencing the 12th man.
Did you go to Texas A&M?
I did not. I just know some folks that did. And in this last round of NCAA football championships, going to Clemson, which I've seen, Death Valley, going to other college stadiums and, South Bend, et cetera, and experiencing that, you need to do that once in your life. It's a great experience.
I went to Mizzou. It was fun. I can't remember if they redid Mizzou Stadium and what happened with that. But, again, it used to be kind of it wasn't like a posh experience.
It's not posh. It's just a spectacle. The feeling on unison of people being behind the school and being involved and all that is
cheerleaders.
It's just great.
Yeah, who's gonna? And you didn't look at the cheerleaders, right?
Not at all. So we had a big day today.
Okay.
We had a big day today. Coming in, just
by the way, I hate to stop us in midstream, but Is the levels good here on our mics?
How are we doing? Is the sound check good? We good?
No, I think no news is
I
good
think no
news.
news is good news. Okay, good.
All right.
All right.
We had a little audio
Audio
issue
problem
last
for
week.
our
For our
millions of
yeah.
fans. I might
By
point
the
out
way,
millions and millions
we did get a million plus, right?
many times.
Yeah.
I mean, the Core Weave story got about 1.5 million views. The CZ Total Show got 1.9 million views.
That's
The Avis
amazing.
story got 1.7 million. We've come close to 1 million on a number of other different clips. So we've
Last
gone
week
into a different level.
and last week, our one of our clips got like 500,000, right?
Yeah, 500,000 views. So, hey, we're doing something right, my friend.
I guess so. Um,
Well, let's talk about what happened
it's
after
not my
hours.
pretty looks, that's for sure. That's doing this.
Well, everybody, we've got tons of sex appeal in this show, tons of sex appeal.
Yeah.
Uh, I know that there's a ex army that's going to hear that comment and give you the
Go for it.
appropriate. You go for it, right?
I don't care. I'm immune to criticism. I've just been beat
No,
up
you
so many
like.
times.
I think you like it. Like the good ones, you don't respond to the bad ones, but some of the
Well,
good ones,
as long as it's like
yeah,
funny and
right,
not totally mean spirited.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
I what I don't like is like you start like attacking my family and you
No,
get
that's
that.
out of bounds.
That's out of bounds.
No, it's out of bounds. No, that's totally right. So coming into we had Amazon, Alphabet, Google, Meta, Microsoft report after hours, right? Just after hours. Coming in, and this is I think a really good stat. Um, Amazon, there were more shorts over the last month. For Alphabet, shorts were flat. Meta shorts were up into the print, but down year to date. But they rose into the print, and Microsoft, the shorts were up sharply, right? And what happened is that Amazon was down 1%. Alphabet beat, which is interesting, right? The short activity had it right. They had it right on Meta, and Microsoft down 2%. So basically, the short interest was right pretty much on predicting the earnings call on all four of the big technology stocks that reported. And obviously, this has been a big focus because of uh, a lot of chatter about OpenAI missing their targets and spending too much money and how out of control it is. And then, of course, the lawsuit that's going on. You've been following that? I'm surprised that hasn't kind of come over your. Well, the
I
idea
filed
that
many lawsuits.
yeah, so this whole thing that's going on with Musk and Sam Altman, where Musk is saying, "Hey, you looted a charity."
I've been following that a little bit.
That's a really. It's
Now
gotten down and dirty.
and it's in the backdrop of all these. Isn't it going public?
Yeah.
Open. It's open. He's open AI.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's going public.
And Anthropic is going public as well.
Totally.
And so I wonder what the disclosure is going to be like about this lawsuit.
Well, he's been, over the weekend and early this week, Musk is out there just lambasting Sam Altman. I mean,
really?
just taking him to the cleaners. So here we are, right in front of, SpaceX going public, Anthropic, and all this, and you've got all these guys throwing mud at each other. So there was a heightened focus on these earnings. So we thought we'd talk a little bit about how the short interest is actually positioned well going into today's earnings that came out just after we went live on the show. And then just turning to our picks from last week, we've been on quite a roll.
I know. I've heard.
And I'm a little surprised that we don't get a little more shout out, because if anybody's following this out there,
well, we do have competitors who are not in the business of shouting us out. Although Bill Cohan of Puck has been very good to us.
Very, very, very good to us.
Right.
Bill's a gentleman.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he really is. But we called on Honeywell as bearish. That turned out to be right. The shares were down 2.5%. We called West Pharma. We were bullish on that. The shares are up almost 13%. So last week we were 2 for 2.
Interesting.
This week we've got a couple of things. One is we're bullish on AIG coming into the reporting Thursday after the close. We're bullish on Lind, which is the world's largest industrial gas producer. They're reporting Friday morning. We're bullish on them. And then I think we have one more pick, which is we are bearish on Colgate Palmolive. They're reporting also Friday morning. So we have two bullish and one bearish call for this week. I think we're something like 7 for 8 over the last picks. So we've been, one of the things about when you ask people, what do you think about AI? For us, machine learning has been a part of our business for, forever.
Absolutely.
So that is a lot of what AI does. And you can make your models better. We're always experimenting. And I think we found a few things that are tweaking and we're making our model a little better. So we're seeing the results and pay attention, please.
So anything else for next week?
One of the things that I really want to get to on this show is to say, and I've been doing some thinking about how to explain data and our data and what we do on this show. I can't recall where there's been a bigger bid ask between what the market is truly saying, how it's positioned, and the lag of the narrative. So I'll explain. So trades happen like instantaneously almost right now.
Yeah.
And then the money moves like when it hits your account, depending on which market is T+1 or T+2. I don't think there's a market in the world anymore that's T+3. So the money moves 2 days later.
Fast. Yeah.
Well,
Fast.
not really, right? Because the trade happens like that. It gets recognized instantaneously. But the money moves 2 days later. But then the narrative, it might move 60 days later.
Interesting.
90 days later, 100 days later. So there's a lot of different stocks and themes. I can give you one example. I'm going to jump around a little bit, guys, so just be prepared. So software stocks, what's the narrative? They're dead.
Bad.
Yeah, they're dead. Dead, right?
Oracle, CoreWeave, right?
Yeah, they're all dead. Oh, they're just software's dead. That's the narrative. When you look at how the market's being positioned and positioning, active investors are actually moving money into the software sector.
Right. And by the way, we should point out as just a journalist who's been covering this, one of the reasons why people are saying it's dead is that you have road shows right now going on for OpenAI,
right.
Anthropic,
right.
bankers selling it. Part of that sales pitch has to be, this is the new frontier. Forget about software.
But this is even before, I think the introduction of the agent and agentic things really started when Anthropic started dropping these things, and they said, you can be your own McKinsey, you can be your own Salesforce, you can be your own XYZ, and the whole SaaS apocalypse, software's dead.
Yeah.
But when you look at the actual how the money is being positioned, it's not dead at all. As a matter of fact, there's a really huge battleground coming up
on this.
Absolutely.
And you see in which stocks?
So we're looking at the S&P 1500 short interest and how longs are doing in the 1500. And you can see there's short covering, but you can also see there's a huge tick up in the amount of longs, particularly passive longs. And there's a lot of passive. All of a sudden in the software sector, there's just a lot of passive money coming into the sector, a lot.
Like BlackRocks and stuff.
Yeah, the ETFs of the world and the indexers of the world, the SSGAs and the BlackRocks, et cetera. So the narrative is software's dead. The positioning tell you, no, we actually think it might have found a bottom here. Now we'll see how it reacts after today.
You've been saying that for weeks now.
And that's,
you saw the early signs.
We saw the early signs of that. We caught the
S3
we caught that, that's right. We got the bounce of that, but you can see now that the money's positioning itself that way. Okay, so that's one narrative that's I thought pretty cool. The other narrative is something like Avis. Oh, that's a squeeze. And you get a lot of people in meme land saying it's a squeeze, and you get all the we got a call from national news services, CNN, NBC, Bloomberg did a story. We were all over the place, and we were telling these folks, like, look, and we said it here, look at who owns this stock. Right? And what happened? The stock went up like 500% because it was so closely held. We had it right about the float. You can go back to the earlier chart. I'm not quite done yet. And then we we said, look, it's so closely held. You have two hedge funds that own like 70% of the stock. And then you've got broker dealers running swap on the stock. You can see that very clearly if you're using our data. And then all of a sudden, the stock goes up 500%. The company, I think, announced their earnings or is doing an earnings call today, where they're probably going to announce there's a secondary. The stock drops like a stone because, of course, the company is going to go out and they should issue stock. And now all of a sudden, the shorts got run over initially because there was no supply,
Right.
but now they're really stuck in. Now they're back because they don't like the company. So this is a narrative that said this is a squeeze, but it really wasn't a squeeze the way people thought it was.
Not like the meme squeeze.
It wasn't the
Yeah.
retail coming in
Yeah.
and doing all
Just
this stuff.
beef.
They were a factor. They were riding, but they weren't the primary driver. The
Right.
primary driver was the institutional investor. So the narrative is this is a meme stock.
Was the
Not
institutional
really.
investor trying to squeeze, you think?
I think they understood the what happened here is that you had two active investors acting like a passive investor,
Gotcha.
and they have 70-something% of the float.
Oh, so they can fuck around anytime. I mean, it's totally legal. I'm not saying they did anything
No,
wrong.
fuck around. It's just that was a strategy,
It's
and
a
they
strat-
and
it's a
they and they,
trading
and,
strategy,
and,
yes.
and they did it, and it worked really well for them. If you looked at a lot of other data, you'd see that these people were you'd be looking at the wrong classifications. So we caught this,
Yeah.
and we had it right. And then if you look at the ownership structure, who owns what, all this is information you can get from us. You can see it very
Oh, there they
clearly.
are. Huh.
You can see it very clearly. One fund was very stable. One increased their position. All of a sudden, you see a lot of people in the mix. You have some fireworks.
I love that chart.
Yeah, it's
That's a
pretty
nice
cool,
chart.
right?
Yeah.
So you can see everything. Then let's talk about South Korea. You mentioned the COPSI. The COPSI is up 50. It's up 57% year to date, and it was up 75% last year. Now, we're the only data vendor in the world that actually has a direct feed to the Korean Stock Exchange. So our numbers,
Oh, really?
yeah, and that's what
Amazing.
makes S3 S3. We are so globally connected. It's something like 180 different
Do you spend
regulators.
much
and
time in
exchanges.
South Korea?
I don't. No.
Have you ever been there?
Yeah, I have.
What is it like?
It is probably the most industrious place on the planet Earth. There is no work ethic like
South Koreans.
South
well,
Koreans.
All South Koreans.
Like
can't do it.
because I think they're just so organized and smart. And people talk about Chinese work ethic and Japanese work ethic. The Koreans actually
Oh yeah, I mean,
got it
I
right.
know a lot of South Koreans here
Yeah.
in the U.S. My brother is a South.
By the way, and they have great hair product, which I should probably go buy.
And they're good at martial arts. So my brother, who
I know.
he's a doctor at he's the chairman of medicine at Brooklyn Medical Center. He is, I want to say, probably for the last 35 years been taking taekwondo, and he's a very high level at it.
Yeah.
And I got to know his master, S.J. Kim, who's this amazing guy. And my brother is a South Korea file. He eats kimchi. He does.
I did
the
not
whole
know
thing.
this.
Oh yes. Ask him about it. He does not speak Korean, but he knows a lot about the culture.
Amazing. Okay, so to be discussed at a further at
We
some
have a
other
few
dinner.
drinks.
Well, we will do this. But give me back to the COPSI, to the COSPI for a second. The short interest is up to about 4.8 a float, and a year ago, following there was a lifting of a short sale ban there. The average short interest is less than 1% of float, so people are hedging out these gains.
Interesting.
And if you look at the Z score on a lot of these things are 3 and 4 times.
The Z
Sometimes-
score is what for our
So
uninitiated?
sure. So the Z score is the comparison of in this case, the company's short interest to its own history.
Okay.
So how
Gotcha.
many more times the mean is it today than it is, let's say, a year ago or over the last year? And it gives you an idea of magnitude. And there's just a huge number of stocks that are in 5, 6, 7 times higher, which is something telling you like, okay, there's overheating going on in that particular market. And when we were talking about gold early in the year, a lot of people thought it was the South Koreans that were actually driving up the price of gold. That has calmed down, went back to their market. So that short interest is telling you people are hedging out those gains. Just watch that. I remember a lot of these. Um, Sometimes financial panics happen, and the fracture happens in places you don't expect.
Huh, interesting.
Malaysia,
So you think maybe
Russia,
South Korea could?
well, Mexico. S- Watch South Korea.
I
That's what
will. We
that's
will
what that.
watch
And
South
anyway, this
Korea.
is a very developed. This is not this is not like a tiger economy. I mean,
No,
this is a
of course.
very well established. It's a big economy, but it is an overheated market with a lot of shorting. Just watch that. We got one other thing we want to do.
And then I want to get to a headline that just
Well,
crossed.
let's go to headline. We can always come back.
You sure?
Yeah.
This is the headline in the Post. Suspiciously timed oil trades, including a $950 million short, have to be insiders, enraged traders claim. Quote, fuck this shit.
In the Post.
Is it a, it's just right
F
here.
bomb in the Post.
I mean, well, they said F dash dash.
Okay,
and,
okay.
well, we can
Yeah,
translate
no,
here.
we're not. Yeah,
This is not a family show.
that's right.
Four suspiciously timed trades on the oil futures market have analysts and traders outraged, calling out corruption in the industry or even worse, data leaks at the highest level. The oil wagers, ranging from $400 million to nearly $1 billion, dwarf other recent insider trading scandals over suspiciously timed bets placed on platforms Polymarket and Kalshi regarding outcomes of the U.S. military action. We're all like, fuck this shit. It's outrageous what's going on. This is corruption. Is how you end up. This is how you end up like Venezuela. Oil market analyst Paul Sankey told the Post. What do you think of this? I mean, I did the story, and by the way, they referenced my story in this piece about how in April, early April, no, or late March, mystery traders may have made between 40 million and 50 million on Trump's announcement to pause the Iran attacks. Remember, there was the buying, essentially shorting the oil market because oil prices went down, and this guy went long the or gal, whoever it was, went long stock futures literally like 15 minutes before this
Yeah.
tweet hit. I mean, that's
Yeah. What do I think?
Yeah.
Well, one, I don't think the identity is going to be too hard to find out. That's number one.
It's
Number
easy to find this.
it's not that hard. The second thing is it an insider doing the $900 million short? I highly doubt it's an individual in the administration.
It's not Trump. Trump doesn't trade.
No, that's not like where it comes from. But you're in a geopolitical time where what's the difference between a country that has its own fund and the political apparatus' access to that fund, and what kind of information do they have that they can use?
Is it possible to arrange a mosaic? Remember, that's this whole thing of the mosaic theory, where you put a bunch of things into like sort of a mix, and when if one piece falls into place perfectly, not necessarily an inside tip, you hit the button, either go short or long, and sometimes you do it with remarkable timing. Is it possible that's what happened here? Because I've heard that. I mean, I'm trying to be like fair. I mean, that it's not total corruption.
But in the macro markets, unless they're a true insider, like they have the government statistics or they have the timing of the negotiation,
or they heard Trump in the Oval Office and ran and told somebody.
But we're in constant communication with so many people around the world, maybe, around what we're doing. A mosaic is certainly possible. More likely, it's there's a lot going on in the Gulf, and this is a very sensitive time, and we are talking to our allies about what's happening, and there's a leak.
Well, the one guy was an Army Ranger or something, who traded on Polymarket. He was part of the sort of planning. But did you see the picture of him? He looked the part. He had dark glasses, dark. So I was like, I'm not messing with this.
But the thing about
motherfucker.
that struck me, he did it 2 months before.
He set it up 2 months before, but
Yeah.
then he kept it on, and
But he did it 2 months before the action. So
yeah,
that's even more damning, if you ask me,
yeah, it's a little, yeah. He was planning for it, but this other one,
because it was, you know,
the one that
if you were paying attention, you'd be like, well, this looks a little, you're putting other people at risk.
But the one in late March was interesting
Yes.
because it was literally 15 minutes before Trump put out his tweet that says we're pausing. It was massive. It was fairly significant size, and not only that, Bob. It was at a time of the day where the markets aren't very liquid. It's like
Yeah.
like you could just that's not a time of day where I think it was Monday morning where futures markets are not like going nuts at that point. So I'm just wondering, can a mosaic fit into place with that trade? Can you foresee a mosaic on that trade? I guess you can, but
Less likely.
most people
Less
don't,
likely.
Most people don't believe me.
Less likely. Yeah, I'm on the other side with you. I'm not saying it can't be. I'm just saying less likely.
That'll be an interesting one. We should point out that Jay Clayton busted the Army Ranger guy. So he's the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District. So I'm sure this is all hands on deck with the CFTC. It'll be interesting to see if the SEC plays a role. SEC generally, I mean, I know this is futures, but the SEC does more insider trading cases, so they probably will have a say in this sort of thing. And sometimes the futures markets bleed into the SEC's jurisdiction.
And what's material, what's non-public.
Yeah.
All these things are up for interpretation. Less so in public markets like equities. In commodities markets, it's a little more murky.
Yeah, it definitely is. Are we done? Or do you got one more thing left here?
I think we can call it a wrap.
Yeah, I think we're right on our. I mean, we're right on our number, which is about an hour.
About an hour.
I'll be next week. I'll be in at the Milken Conference in LA, so
right.
We'll be doing it remotely. I'll be there.
Yep.
Hopefully, I'll have some good dirt that I dug up at the Milken Conference. They do have me running around a lot. Again, I have to do they call them fireside chats, which should be interesting. One with
DeSantis,
and then that's on Monday, and you can stream it live. You can see it streamed live, and the second one with Tim Scott, the senator from South Carolina, which he's an interesting guy, and he's the head of the banking committee, so I'm going to talk to him about crypto and Warsh, obviously what's going on with Powell hanging on to the chandeliers. DeSantis will be much more about. I'm actually going to, I'm going to quiz him about his future. Is he going to run again? He is probably the best operational public official we have. Yeah. I mean, just in terms of running stuff, this guy is really good. He's really smart. Harvard Law School, JAG Corp.
Yep.
He was a JAG officer in the Navy.
Yep.
This guy's got it all. And Florida has been an economic miracle,
Well, we can get into later next week, or maybe even the week after, we can get into the economic miracle of Florida. If you talk to Governor DeSantis, and he can send everybody that's in New York State and part of the mayor's office anyway, not necessarily the city council, but he can send a thank you note. Maybe you can deliver one.
I mean,
maybe have him write a thank you note. We can read it on the show.
I mean, I did some coverage of this Mondami Petitier tax. Is that what they call?
Yeah.
I mean, think about how stupid it is. And first off, he should.
Well, it was on the front page.
Yeah.
So Charlie really like you downplayed that one.
Yeah, I know. It was a front page story. I was part of the package, and I am one of my columns was featured prominently. He picked on Ken Griffin. I mean,
But we talked about that. What a mistake.
Here's why it's bad. You shouldn't, in this environment, you should not be putting, forcing everybody to look at one guy. I mean, it's really bad. We're in a very volatile environment, as you know, coming after, a lot of politically inspired violence on CEOs, which we don't have to get into because I don't want to.
No, we don't want to give anybody any ideas more than they already have.
It's disgusting.
Yes.
But not only that, whether it's Ken Griffin or Joe Blow, who's got a Petitier, which is a second home worth more than $5 million and doesn't live here, they don't use any services because they don't live here.
Right.
So they essentially pay into the system their property taxes, besides the fact that he employs a gazillion people in the city.
They're the best club member, right? They don't show up. They don't use any of the services except for maybe like 10 or 15 or 20 days of the year.
He's got his own security.
And then they pay for everything else.
I mean, he doesn't need a police detail because he's got his own security. I mean, this guy gives in so much. Why go after him? Why beat him up? I mean, it's like so stupid.
Because you're in a land. You're in Never Land.
I mean, if I'm the mayor, whether you
Never Land,
whether you like Wall Street traders or not, you just kind of. I mean, you kind of
Never Land.
It's so stupid.
Never Land.
I mean, it's so dumb. And anyway, that story is developing, as they say.
We'll
see, because Ken Griffin is making noises that he might not build his gazillion-dollar new New York office complex. It'll be interesting to see how that turns out. And there's also talk about a compromise. And I spoke with the head of the New York City partnership, Steve Phillip. You know Steve?
I don't know him.
Steve is a very interesting guy, and he's taken that organization, which was like kind of doing nothing for so long, taken into a new direction where they're actually activists. They keep their lines of communications open, but he calls them as he sees them. Steve was the former mayor of, I think he was in private equity, then he became mayor of Jersey City.
Right.
And now he's doing this. Steve told me that they're trying to work out some sort of compromise that if you create a certain amount of jobs, you don't get hit with that. And obviously Griffin would satisfy. So would many others.
But if you're not willing to cut your budget, which is at an all-time high, and you're saying you have a $5 billion deficit.
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean,
there's so many other different ways you can create $5 billion in revenue.
It's a $127 billion budget. Budget.
Can you ask DeSantis one thing for me?
Yeah.
One question.
Yes.
How much could he run New York City on?
What is the AI this? Before we give up here, before we go to cocktail hour, which is rapidly occurring.
No, just
how large
you got to ask him.
The Florida state budget. Okay,
it's less than New York City. I know that.
It's 116 billion. That's for the whole state. New York City for the city is 127 billion.
So ask him, if you were the mayor of New York, you got to ask him this question for me.
And by the way,
how much could you run New York City on?
It's balanced.
Yeah.
And there's no income tax.
How much could you run New York City on? Ask him. Please.
I will. That would be my first question.
All right.
We're going to leave it at that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in for another riveting edition of Risk and Return. I'm Charlie Gasparino from The Post, from Fox Business, with my partner in crime, Bob Sloan from S3 Partners, signing off.